science. I can hear, oh, I can hear. Think I'll go where it suits me. Moving now to a country with everyone, oh, everyone, before we all become one.
Welcome to No Clip. I'm Chad Rutherman,
I'm Andy Kinnick.
And I'm JJRT Master.
and today we're going to be talking about Transistor. Transistor was a game developed by Supergiant Games, and it was released on PC and on the PlayStation 4 in 2014. And that's actually all.
Oh no, it's on iOS in I think February 2015.
Oh, well, recently it was put on the phone
Yes.
that you can play. That's weird. So, Transistor is most of the time referred to as like an action RPG, and it's Supergiant's follow-up to Bastion, which has like a similar perspective, but not
Similar mechanics.
at all.
Not even a little.
Right.
Yeah. And it was in fact sort of a misnomer. I remember watching the trailer when they first announced the release of the game and thinking that the correlation would be a whole lot more one-to-one, because I was a fan of Bastion. I wasn't fanatic or anything, but I was excited enough to want to look into the rest of their offerings. But-
One of them.
Yeah.
This
one.
game.
But
Transistor is deeply emotionally affected, JJ.
it has.
Yeah.
As you can tell by the sigh.
Yeah.
I think the question that we all ask, and by all I mean literally just the three of us, ask at the beginning of every episode, is why we're talking about the game. And I think that the most, coherent way to put why we're talking about this game is that this game took JJ's pants and blew them straight off of his body.
Yeah.
He did insist that we both play the game and that we talk about it here against our will.
That'd be a little strong.
Is that actually, even if it is strong, is it even in some way related to your final opinion? Am I forcing you against your will to talk about this game?
No.
Well, I actually think that in the at the end of this, Andy liked the game slightly more than I did, and I actually had already purchased the game on my PlayStation, so playing this game was not a hassle. I just got a text message and I was like, "Oh, okay," and then booted the console and started playing it.
Okay, then I guess since I'm the one who forced this game on the docket anyway, I can ask the first question that I wanted to cast, which is, what do you guys think actually happened in the game?
You're talking plot-wise.
Yeah.
The whole plot?
Yeah.
Or just the ending?
Nothing
You
but
want
the
to go
plot.
really
so
broad.
help you God.
Anything you want.
I don't know. I get. I apologize if this is too highfalutin comparison to make. I don't think it is, but I get a very Isaac Asimov feel from it, because the game is clearly set and exists within this sci-fi aesthetic, and a lot of it is the type of thing where when you play through the game and just sort of experience the things that are happening, while there are certain plot elements that you absolutely need to process, pun intended, a lot of times those are things where either one, you don't have control of the character at the time, or it's in one of those single animation frame moving background
Oh yeah, one of those things.
segments where it really sort of drives home the point. But it's a game that has a lot under the surface that you can get into if you choose to.
Yeah.
And my experience with it was that I probably didn't pick up on everything, but got the majority of the main plot down. But I never really felt driven to do a deep dive while I was playing the game. It's something that I may have been interested in going back to afterward, but not actually during play itself.
Yeah, I think it's a game that warrants a replay. because like you don't like necessarily like the game delivers so little plot like early in the game that like by the time you get to the end like is when you have all the questions. So upon like watching Chad play it after I had just finished, I think it like helped me get a better grasp on the plot.
Yeah, the plot itself is sort of like a circle within a circle in terms of you start at the beginning. It's not really like it's not like a full on like Memento thing.
Yeah, or like a Donnie Darko.
Right. What happens is that like you start and you pull the transistor out of a guy who has died, and like there's a little like blurb that comes up that says like transistor kills today 1. So it's pretty clear like what happened on like the basic like surface level.
Mm-hmm.
But then the rest of the story is told in flashbacks that occur after like certain events in game, and then the main plot itself wraps back around on itself when you return to Fairview post like complete process takeover.
Yeah.
So it's got like the story itself is convoluted, and if you tried to draw the plot line like representationally on a piece of paper, it would also be convoluted.
Well, what's not convoluted about the plot and what they establish from the second you start the game, the first image that comes up of Red standing over the corpse with the transistor in it is your motivation, and that this is some kind of revenge quest. Your voice has been stolen, this guy is dead, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. But even the learning aspect might be secondary to just punishing these people, whoever they might be. But with the game, with that established, you can just go hog wild after that. But the game trusts you to be curious about its setting and doesn't force the setting upon you in any way if you don't want to. You beat the game without touching any wall of text anywhere, of which there were many.
Right.
And you still had an idea of your motivations. It was just less clear for you to be able to trace things. But yeah, it's like,
trace things.
Trace, yeah. I feel like, at least in this group of people, I hold the unpopular opinion of the reason why I didn't go into that. Like, you go to the menu when you examine a process. No, when you examine a function.
yeah.
That's what they're called. It will like explain, because you pick them up from citizens who have been processed, and when you absorb like these floating cubes, I don't know if they ever gave like a proper name to.
That's their trace.
That's the trace?
Yep.
Okay, so that's a trace. The people have been processed. If we throw these like proper nouns around, I'm trying to at least make them make sense. You kind of can view like a biography of the person, and then as you associate, which we'll get into the combat system because it's like the main selling point of the game.
Yes.
But as you like experiment and put things with other things and into things and around things, you unlock more of their like biography and like data about them. And I felt like I didn't really want to sit and read all of that because I kind of find the combat itself to be boring, and I didn't want to sit and read a bunch of text to draw out the amount of time that I was spending in between combats.
Wait, you found the combat boring, so you didn't want to read the biographies?
Right, that's just adding boring on top of boring. That's some boring icing on top of some boring cake.
So you didn't want to spend more time in doing a thing that sucks, I see.
Well, and also, I mean, you're reading in a menu. Like, that's cool, but, like, my favorite parts of this game, that I will say outright the game does better than most games, are the visual and audio design. I think they're outstanding.
Yeah. It's not a judgment that you didn't read it, just an observation.
Mm-hmm.
The game works because it establishes a motivation regardless of whether or not you want to dig. But, oh shit, if you want to dig, there is digging to be done. So...
Yeah, I can imagine. I've found out a few things just from, like, cursory... like reviewing of like plot details that I did not pick up on at all for really obvious reasons.
Did either of you pick up, and probably the least subtle of all the things the game was trying to mention, that you're in a computer?
Oh, like because you use functions and a thing called Transistor controls the city. That can change its like physics and appearance.
Yeah, and everyone can change the things that well.
I don't really.
I did not.
Oh, okay.
I would straight up say that.
Okay. There are a few things about it that I feel like are inconsistent. Not with, like, the game itself, but, like, I don't understand a lot. This is what I was just saying earlier, is that I don't understand character motivation particularly well in this game.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess that's why I didn't really pick up on
Yeah.
a lot of detail stuff, but, like, I don't get why... I'll get into this later, I think.
Okay.
So, we'll continue. You were gonna say...
Oh,
I didn't pick up on the computer thing.
yeah.
Is that like a canon explanation? Like, is that true?
Virtually nothing is like true canon in this game because everything's sort of obscured around lots of like proper nouns that make things weird. Probably the one that's the closest to canon but still unknown is did you ever? I don't even know if you, without reading anything, saw into this, but any of the references to going to the country.
Yeah, they said that in words
Yeah.
in the game.
Yeah. But that's essentially
The
just
real
like
world.
within the context of in the context of the game, it's just dying. Like that's just like a heaven euphemism.
Right.
Yeah, the first time you read it, it can be suggested out of context they might actually be leaving the place, but I think most people agree that it's like a literal death, or at least
So-
leaving the computer.
Are they real people, or are they just like Tron computer program people?
Unclear. Don't know if it really matters either way because they
So are
clearly
they like
have
because
like
are like they brain in vats or
Yeah.
something? Or...
Right.
well, I guess this isn't evidence one way or the other either for other reasons, but in the final boss fight, when you go into your turn mode and out of it, you're in that like crazy transistor country land, and there are those little sort of computer-looking cubes sitting around in the field. And when you go into turn, you can see like individual like human-like spirits in all of the cubes.
Right.
And there's an exact number of cubes equal to the number of functions that exist in the game.
Well, I definitely wouldn't have picked up on that.
No, I didn't notice that either.
Yeah.
Well, I
yeah.
mean, I didn't count. I noticed that there was like stuff in them, but
Well, you would have to hit...
I didn't think about it too much.
You would
I
have
was
to hit
busy
Mac-
fighting a boss.
You would
I
have to
told
hit...
you guys. I told you before
Well-
we started this. Pay attention to literally everything. because
Okay,
even
but
the
we're not gonna just because
smallest
you told us
details-
doesn't mean we're going to notice everything.
And I just actively disobeyed that.
Well, I mean, that's the
you
way
would
I
have to
would
hit
play
max
it.
level, though, wouldn't you? Because you unlock different functions as you...
I think so, yeah, but the
Right.
max level isn't as far. I think I hit it before I got to the end of the game.
well, you used
The limiters.
the limiters, right,
Yeah.
which I did not use.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
For reference, I actually, even though how much focus I'm putting on it in the early parts of our conversation here, I actually think narrative, compared to how fantastic the game is at everything else, is one of the things that it is least good at, because I think it overshoots too far into the like obscure realm of things. Particularly what goes on at the very, very end of the game is, I think, not as clear as it should be. The game clearly wants to leave itself open for like various forms of interpretation of even the most basic things like the setting and like where you are, like during the final boss fight and after you kill yourself in the very last scene of the game. But there's a difference between not providing enough information and having the information you do provide being kind of contradictory in many ways. And that's what's made it hard for anyone to set up a theory that isn't like rife with problems about what's actually going down.
Do you have an example of contradicting story elements?
Well, with all the references of like going to the country and stuff, it's clear that you're in a computer. And
Is
it's,
it though?
Just to like, for clarification, it is very much like a programmer's game, where like
Yeah.
the functions you use are formatted like they are functions in a programming language, and you can insert other functions into them as arguments as well.
Right.
It
It could
which
be
is,
like
yeah.
just like a sci-fi concept.
I suppose, but it does
like
like
kind of like a Wizard of Oz thing, where like it's like an illusion projected over like a real city.
right. But I mean, like, with the exception of, I guess, does Red even open, like, when you open a door, does Red actually do anything? to like manipulate the environment at all.
Oh,
she
no.
never like opens the door.
Right.
No.
I feel like it's implied that Transistor is like the only, or not the only, but like what, because it's the thing that sort of controls the world itself.
Yeah.
Is like, as the like living embodiment of the code base, sort of the only way to manipulate the environment at all.
Even more specifically in that, if I had a specific... One of the like crazy batshit theories after thinking about this a lot that I came to is that I think the transistor is actually the setting of the game. I think like the conceit of your setting is that you're in a computer that is powerful enough to be able to simulate itself.
Okay.
And there's like a... Getting into rabbit holes here. It explains the New Game Plus mode, and it explains the other inconsistency that I was about to explain between the final boss, which is when you get to the cradle and put the transistor in, you appear to like go to the country, but there's all these crazy transistors that have all over the place, and the boxes that appear to contain the souls of all the individuals who live in Cloudbank. But that you also go to the country at the end of the game. That's like the main contradiction.
Like when you die.
Yeah, you're
yeah.
like the literal country. You walk toward a barn.
Yeah. There's a barn. There's also a barn in the final boss fight.
Right, but there's also an enormous sword sticking out of the ground.
Right.
So.
So there's like, so it's like unclear because you can't be going to the same place each time, because when you're going into the country from the cradle, like the sword country is what I'll call it for shorthand, you're clearly not out of the program because you can still affect it with the transistor.
Right.
Like you are still red. The guy, I'll call him Blue, the like disembodied male voice who's your lover through the game.
Oh, sure, yeah.
He doesn't exist there as a physical person. He's just in a transistor still, and you fight with him. But when you go to the country through killing yourself, he's now there. It's just like a person, and you are too with your voice.
Right.
So they aren't the same location.
Right, but in one instance she dies, and the other instance she does not.
In the other instance, she's like through ambiguous terms through the last antagonist, like pulled in some way.
Right.
Do you
And
think that's like projected, by the transistor?
Well, what I think specifically is that whatever computer the setting of the game is on, is continually making copies of itself as the transistor, so that there's like a multiple. It's like a sandwich of countries in which you keep shifting between, like country Cloudbank over and over again, so that when you are going to the country through the cradle, you are going up a level back to where there are already like a bunch of branching different transistors, and when you're going down a level, you're at a location where there hasn't been a lot of branches yet, so there's no transistors in the country. If that makes any sense at all.
I don't know, but you are definitely like maintaining your title as king of metaphors.
Yeah, but
that took it a little far for me.
Yeah,
You lost me, Jake.
I feel like that's not even like. I mean,
but the point I think I should make with this is
Right.
not even that I think that theory is like exclusively valid. It's that the game is so vague that in order to explain inconsistencies like the two different countries you go to at the end, you have to go like that far. I think it's a little far narratively for it to go.
well, I mean, the other explanation is that like the people, quote the people, whatever we're gonna call them, that are contained within like Cloudbank as a whole, are in fact real people. In fact, it may be a simulation that's set up with like a voluntary, like access to it.
Yeah.
And then dying in the game does not in fact make you die for real, but in fact just boots you back out into the real world. Which, for all we know, could be like post-apocalyptic or some shit.
Of course.
Because we're talking about Fallout 4 today. I'm Chad Rotherman.
Twist!
The biggest lead-in ever.
But there's other stuff.
Record broken.
If I had to sit for it that suggests control, like although you didn't use them, the limiters, they make the process stronger.
Right.
But they're chips that you actually put on your physical transistor.
Right.
Suggesting some kind of relationship between your setting. The process is essentially just like wiping the hard drive, literally.
I don't know about that.
Why?
Because in the end, okay, this is what I was going to get into before, and I feel it is a much more appropriate time to. About me not understanding character motivations.
Yeah.
Is that it's basically it's at least implied, if not explicitly stated, that the Camerata, who are the people who created the process and are like the antagonistic group at the beginning of the game. I don't know if they you made a face like they didn't create the process.
They didn't. They discovered the process.
They discovered the process. Sorry.
Glasses.
They discovered the process. Yeah.
Well, it's important because it suggests that the process are an unseen part of the setting instead of a thing made by the Camerata.
Right.
The process are like part of the code of whatever's going on in a location, and that they're just being controlled by the transistor that they found and
Right.
made it explicit.
Well, they found the transistor, and that's the important bit because they attempted to use it to kill Red.
Yeah.
Who is a nightclub singer, and it doesn't make a lot of sense in theory that they would want to kill a nightclub singer for no reason.
That was my biggest thing too, was I had no idea why they wanted to kill
At the
her.
end of the game, and this is why I don't think that the process are like actively like wiping sectors or something.
Yeah.
Is that you use your restored voice to like revert things that were like processified, like those white cubes, back into like the ground and scenery that they once were.
Yeah.
Which means that one, that seems to me like that is motivation for them to kill you because you can revert what the process does. But I also don't think that the process are wiping things. I think they're just reshaping them in a weird way. And I don't get what the process's, like, intent is. If it has it, or if it's, like, just an animal sort of, like, takeover for takeover's sake.
Yeah, no hard answers. The thing that I drew from it was that once the Camerata lost access to the transistor, Red had no fucking idea what to do with it or how to use it beyond a lot of like the very blunt actions that she took over the course of the game, like just shove it into the ground and cause an explosion. It also explains the leveling because she's becoming progressively more familiar once she gets the functions, how to use the actual thing and shape the world by the end of the game.
Right.
Is that the process wasn't getting instructions anymore, so they just did null. They just actively did nothing. There's also arguments to be made that they could have gained some kind of sentience, were no longer under control of an outside source and just kept trying to replicate themselves. There's lots of different ways you can go with it, but I think the important thing to recognize is that they, I think intentionally within the design of the game, didn't build in an easy answer, and they might have not given us enough for it to be as interesting as it could have been. I would have rather had a situation where we just lacked information than the situation where we just get lots of sort of contradictory information that sort of suggests different things at different layers of the game.
Layers again. I don't know. I feel like it's sort of like almost like expected of a sci-fi, like a piece of science fiction, like any sort of work to be like really wordy and have like in-depth, like sort of deep and nuanced like storytelling, and I feel like it doesn't always serve the like best of the story. And I felt sort of that way. Like I felt there was too much information for me to have the desire to take it in. Like maybe if I was more invested in the game as a whole, I would have wanted to.
It was optional for that reason. Like
Yeah.
you said, you're fine one way or the other.
Yeah, like I overall had a positive experience with the game, but like for the rest of the night, I wasn't sitting there going like, "Oh, where was I?"
I was immediately.
I never even questioned that.
Just take it like on a fully literal
Yeah.
basis, and that's actually like it's totally like an acceptable way to like interpret it.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, sci-fi setting, weird computer city.
Right?
Go.
Yeah, I'm all. You had me at Computer City.
Or, I mean, yeah, it's like completely possible they're in a computer, whatever.
Yeah. No big deal.
I guess so. Then, if that's our takeaway from the narrative structure of the game.
You never said if you had an opinion on why they wanted to kill Red.
Oh, yeah. If you read more of the background information of all the other functions, they were just like anyone. It didn't have to be like a specialist. They were trying to sort of absorb the functions of people who they thought were like better in some vague definition. Like the jaunt function is from a race car driver. The stealth function is from like a performance artist. There's one girl who like designs the weather in the setting. It's just like weird artsy, greater than thou types that they were trying to absorb covertly.
My favorite function,
Bounce?
the name, bounce was my real favorite function, but I forget actually what the name of the function is. You get it really late in the game.
Oh, Cull.
Cull
The
is
linebacker.
is a linebacker. I just said he's like whoop and just throw a guy straight into the air. That's fun. That's a good time.
But if you're wondering specifically why red, there's a lot of sort of vague possible explanation for that too, which
And
is
why is her ability crash?
that's
Not something more musical related.
I don't know. It's her and Blue both have abilities that suggest sort of like these crazy destructive natures.
Right.
Most of the others, even if they also do destructive things, aren't like inherently. They aren't worded like break, smash, explode, or anything like that. But Sybil, do you remember the girl with the little parasol? If you read more on sort of that relationship,
Meaning actually the best boss in the game.
oh
Sybil.
yeah, I'm so fucking glad.
Yeah,
the
Sybil's
Sybil
really
fight literally is going to probably haunt me for the next decade.
I don't know about haunt me.
What?
It was definitely the most
Not
fun
an
boss fight in the
exaggeration.
game. Though.
Once I have a lot more to say about this after I
Okay.
explain this, but they're suggested that
She was
Sybil
in
had a
love with her.
romantic feeling for Red, and since the Camerata she was a member of the Camerata, and she was the person who would pick targets. And since they were going around picking performance artists, she convinced them to go after Red, knowing that Blue would be there at the time, under the expectation that they would kill Blue, and she could like get him out of the way, so that she could, in some like really crazy, fucked up way, attempt to be with her.
Right. I actually thought that she was crazy because she had been processed. But
That she was crazier because she
Oh
was
yeah.
processed.
So she started at a net crazy and then got crazier.
Yeah. And it was her decision to do that set the events of the game in motion, because she fucked up. The connection between Blue and Red is what caused the Transistor to switch ownership to her,
Right.
which is what was unexpected and allowed Red to just fuck
The game.
everything up.
It allowed the game to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. But that Sybil boss fight, Jesus Christ. Not only was the lead up in it mechanically great, because it's the first period where you're actually given like a full test of the very limited abilities you have at this point in the game and to really experience the systems. Like, it's around the time when I started to use Jaunt and realized how important Jaunt was to all the different components of the game.
Yeah, I lost to Jaunt a total of twice over the course of the game, and both times I felt like I was playing a different game that made me want to cry.
But the whole fight like continues to suggest like the weird kind of crazy ownership relationship. They do this a lot in the game, where the songs, even though it's suggested that the songs existed before the narrative takes place, but the songs are relevant to what's happening right then. Like, there's actually a song that's just called "The Spine of the World," which is that huge, crazy monster creature. But like the song,
Go on.
No, sorry. The song sung during the Sybil fight is called "In Circles," and the lyrics are talking about how when first Red starts singing it initially when you're going through the fight, talking about how, sort of metaphorically, she's looking down at Sybil and is seeing a person who is sort of like a spider being like flushed down the drain, and like just life is like going into like a shitty spiral based on unintentional actions, and how she won't save you. That's like the sort of the refrain of the song. It's just like, I won't save you. And then once you get to the third tier of the boss fight, Sybil sings it back to you. The whole song changes into like a crazy sort of like hard drive noise, like animatronic voice, where it's Sybil saying the same thing to her, and it makes sense in context. I don't know like the canon status of the singing, because obviously Red can't sing by this point, so she wasn't literally singing at the time. But like a lot of the other different portions of the game, because it's in a computer, the line between like the kind of things that are happening in the game that are canon and the kind of things that aren't is sort of fuzzily drawn. So I was taking it that there, at the time, at least when I first played it, that maybe Sybil was the one singing her songs anyway, and that through the whole game it was the process singing Red's songs because I have that weird fucking obsession with her,
Right.
as evidenced by the end. But yeah, essentially, like, not only was the boss mechanically good, where you have this like crazy teleporting thing that's extremely threatening and forces you into the run and gun tactics that most of the rest of the combat in the game is going to be defined by, but you have this like really interesting visually designed villain. You set up an extremely subtle but nonetheless poignant like emotional connection between the two, where one had this sort of crazy love relationship to the other and is now corrupted, just like attempting to like kill each other.
Right.
And I don't know. I just found Sybil singing the song back extremely emotionally affecting, and not just because the song itself was really prettily sung, and that song will stay with me for a long time.
Were there actually lyrics in the song in game?
Not in game. Well, the third verse has like the.
No, all of them have lyrics.
I never heard any lyrics.
The whole game, you never heard any lyrics?
I thought
Not
it was
even
all
one.
replaced with humming.
Yeah.
But you can...
I mean, you can hum.
You can.
By
No,
holding a
I
button.
thought I remembered all the music that happened in the fights. Like, it had, like, what sounded like would-be lyrics, but they were all being hummed.
No, the boss fights, I don't know the exact distinction, because the songs don't always have lyrics. They can just be like the refrains of the songs. But you can look up all the songs, too, if you want to. And I know for a fact that during the boss fights, there are lyrics.
Oh, I never noticed that.
Yeah. One of the other things you get back to, because the lyrics are always relevant to what's going on to the end, in like a weird, crazy, metaphorical way.
Well, I mean, yeah, not only that, but I think the way that the game's music was composed, they composed them as fully produced songs, and then would take parts of the songs out in order to dynamically, like, change how the music sounded during the game.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can get the soundtrack released simultaneously with the game when it came out.
Yeah.
So for like a few bucks, like you could have just picked it up and it would have had like the full, like the entire every layer of the song on it for you to listen to, and that would be a little bit less ambiguous. But
See, I don't really remember the Sybil fight being difficult.
It wasn't.
it's not. It was the first time that I ever like lost a health bar, but
Nothing in the game is, as we normally, at least I think anyways, would normally define it difficult.
Because I say, I remember that boss looking really cool,
Right.
but like other than that...
well, I just thought it was the most interesting boss fight.
Yeah, I mean, it had a
Mechanically
cool
speaking.
setup too as
Yeah.
well, but...
Yeah.
If I would have noticed the lyrics, I probably would have liked it more.
The last moment where like Sybil is just like attempting to like crawl towards you constantly still, within like inches from death. I'm surprised I didn't do anything like that before. I was actually a little disappointed that none of the other boss fights of the game I thought came close to the Sybil fight in effectiveness toward me, but I grant that the reasons that fight affected me were probably... It was a culmination of factors that may not have been able to be repeated and not even be the game's fault, strictly speaking.
Right.
So.
What? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it feels like the game is missing like a boss fight.
Right.
Because I feel like there's only 3.
Yeah.
And I feel like there needs to be like one more in the game.
I don't know. I feel like the game was like... It was the appropriate length for what it wanted to do.
I thought the length was pretty perfect as well.
But I don't think that... Like, in order to introduce another boss fight, because of what they wanted to do narratively with the game, they would have had to have introduced... I guess, theoretically,
Those
they could have
guys
left
that-
the guys
who kill
alive
themselves
instead of
alive.
having them kill themselves. But then
'Cause
that changes their motivation
Right.
completely.
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know.
But what the fuck, since you've done clearly more research on this than either of us have.
Oh, fuck yes.
What is the spine of the world, and why does it affect
The transistor.
the personality of the transistor?
I don't know anything about it other than it is a huge process in terms of that. But my theory about why it causes the transistor to go crazy and red like that is because it's just like loading a huge object into like a game. It's making the computer run slower. It's back to the transistor is like just a simulation of a computer within a computer repetitively.
Right.
It's because the spine of the world is in the setting of CloudBank, it's causing the computer to run slowly, which is causing the transistor to act crazy.
I thought it might just be like a computer virus or something.
I just thought it would just be, yeah. Like, 'cause I don't understand what the spine of, they call it the spine of the world. And there's just like it's represented as just a huge squid. I was like, well, I don't know the fuck I'm doing right now.
Is it actually a squid?
I think it only has one arm, but it looks like a squid.
It does look like a squid. When it's like flying around through the background and stuff.
I never took any like still frames of that.
Yeah.
I've never seen anyone like any like comprehensive picture of it like lined up anywhere.
Right.
Because I also thought that it was going to be a squid before I fought it as well.
I mean, when you fight it, it's just like just its face and then
like
the
a
tentacle,
hand.
right?
Yeah.
Which I even interpret as a tentacle. It looks like a crab claw, I guess.
I think
sort
it looks
of.
like a tentacle.
But yeah, it looks like a blooper, like Super Mario tentacle.
Right.
I think, as you said earlier, I agree that the game is missing a boss fight in open quotes. It doesn't have. It had only one of the types of boss that I assumed would sort of fill the game after the Sybil fight, which is bosses like that, which is sort of like advanced processes, like they're just distinct small guys move around a lot. Because otherwise, you just had like as we joked, like the womb level boss,
right.
where you're just like a giant, massive organism that you have to kill, and then after that, the only other boss
is the final boss.
Yeah, which is just you. It's a guy who's mirroring all of your abilities,
which I thought was really cool.
I hated that boss.
What? Why?
Because it's so rote. Like, it's just you and the other guy, and basically, as long as you're not like a complete fuck up, you just will win.
Why?
Because, okay, so you both effectively have, like, 4 lives, right? He doesn't do anything that you would... First of all, does this game have difficulty settings?
I don't remember if it has menu difficulty settings, but it's kind of irrelevant because you can just add the difficulty increasing things.
But yeah, but do those affect the bosses?
I don't... They affect the bosses in some ways. Like, whenever the bosses would... drop personality cores, like the little... I don't know if that's what they're called.
That's the portal.
Oh, oops. Your reference to the portals got me. But yeah, the little like egg guys.
The
like,
cells?
Yeah, the cells. That's
cells,
what they're called. I know all the ones that affect cells still affects the cells that are dropped in boss fights at minimum. But I don't know if like damage ups, things like that affect bosses.
But like
offhand.
Royce doesn't drop cells. Like he's just a guy with Transistor.
No. I don't know.
But like he doesn't use like strategy, really. He walks around until his bar is recharged, uses it, and so your strategy when your bar is recharging is just to put yourself in an inconvenient location so he can use fewer functions on you. After it's after he hits it, you just stand there. Like, you don't have the opportunity to do anything to like evade his attacks.
Yeah.
You just get hit. And then you use strategy that you developed over the course of the game to edge him out in damage. Like the way I did it was to just make sure that all of my attacks were backstabs, which gives an additional 50 per 25.
He does that to you as well.
Yeah.
Most of the time he'll attack you from the back.
And you can't edge out based on like whole game strategies because the fight... because of the length, you're guaranteed to lose at least one of your functions. So you have to not just... go in with one strategy, but like in every other point of the game, you're forced to reevaluate your strategy repeatedly as the boss fight goes on.
Okay, I suppose. Especially considering... Well, I mean, I went in with one, like, high damage attack that I had put in a function to increase its damage. So, because I didn't know what the boss fight was going to entail. So I just, like, jammed a bunch of damage into one thing and then had my utility functions and then bounce because it's my favorite, even though it doesn't do anything to it. And, like, that's, like, I mean, so, and I lost that after I dealt, like, a bar and a half to him. Mm-hmm. And then I lost, Call. And it was, like, but I still, like, just beat him.
Yeah, it's supposed to be, like, a desperation move. You're like, all of your, like, good shit is gone now. And you're just, like, scraping by, barely.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny. Like, that was your strategy going in. I'm like, oh, he's going to be really mad when he loses that.
Well, I said, like, right before I did, I was just like, well, if I die once, I basically, like, have to start over. But then I just won anyway. Yeah. Like, I don't know. It's just, like, I didn't find the fight real interesting, and I don't like that they used... the turn mechanic to put like narration in the boss fight.
Oh,
so what?
Screw you.
What
That's perfect.
already took a long time to sit there and wait while you got hit took even longer because he would monologue before that. He was just talking to you for the whole last level.
I know.
And then he was like, "Oh, now you're here to talk to you some more."
Because neither of you are fighters. Neither of you.
Right.
He's just a guy.
Well, he's
who
like
clearly
he's
talks your
he's
fucking...
like a government official of some kind.
He's
right?
a scientist. And he talks your ear off
Mr.
all the
Scientist.
time. The whole time leading up to this fight, he just never shuts up.
He leaves
Yeah.
you all those messages too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it gave me a really good motivation to fucking murder him.
Exactly! It's exactly what you want.
Yeah, but I already wanted to murder him. I didn't need to waste my damn time.
You wanted to murder him more. It was like one of the sort of subtly... even calling it villainous may not even be the right thing. It makes you dislike the guy, which is the
I just
point
thought
of
it made
villainy.
him seem crazy.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. I don't know.
I think it's open whether how psychotic
Right, like-
he was or not.
Yeah, at like certain points, I would just kind of tune him out because I'm like, is he still talking?
Yeah, I don't know. I
Because
mean,
he just rambles. That's all the guy does.
He just rambles.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I thought it was effective.
I do think that like even though that is my least favorite of the boss fights, it is. I like the fact that the 3 boss fights did something very different for each one of them, and additionally, like all 3 of the boss fights were different than your like day-to-day encounters in the world. Like, because you don't like. Sybil would be the closest, but
Right.
also at the same time, like...
Sybil was early enough in the game that she never felt like she was similar anyway.
Right. Like, yeah, like the closest thing you could draw to her would be like the
young ladies.
young ladies,
Yep.
because it's just sort of about like avoiding them and then like using turn to come around to hit them. But then like the Spine of the World ends up being sort of a tanky boss fight, like just deal as much damage as possible, which is not something that you generally have to care about in the game.
While also moving constantly.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you have to avoid like the triggered, the like timed things.
And all
It's
the
really hard to
lasers.
judge, by the way, when you are stopping time.
Yeah.
It's like really the best way to do it is to just trigger turn every time that it's coming down, because the screen shakes a little bit.
Yeah. You get
But
some warning.
this is a strategy guy for Transistor.
But yeah, I think the Royce
Use
battle
Breach.
is justified alone at its presence, even somewhere in the game, even if it wasn't a final boss, by how much it educates you to how diverse your strategies in the game could be. Because
Right.
when you first go into it, it took me like a few of his turns anyway for me to realize that everything he's doing is a combination of the functions I have.
Right.
They're all stuff that you could just hypothetically be doing, including turn itself.
I'm actually really curious. I don't even know if anyone here knows this.
Yeah.
But does he only use 4, like, functions? Or,
I
like,
think
4, like,
so.
main, like...
Yeah.
Like,
I
4
believe,
active functions?
It's the... I don't know the combinations off the top of my head.
Well, that makes my second question irrelevant, because it was going to be, would they change if you did the boss fight over again?
I was thinking about that before I made the statement. I wish it does.
Because that'd be really cool.
Yeah. I'm worried that it might be beyond them, just given the number of, different possible combinations that are available in the game.
Right.
Because I don't know what criteria they choose, how similar your movesets would have to be before you pick something different. But, yeah, that would have made that component, the educational component of that last fight, even more affecting. And the education is relevant at that point, because you can just go straight on through into the New Game Plus mode right after that.
Yeah, start recursion.
Yeah, as many other
Or
people
exit
do.
shell, whatever the fuck that means. That I don't
That's just how
really
you
get.
quit the game.
Yeah, I know, but that's because recursion makes sense, because
Right.
when you recur, you start again.
Yeah.
It's you're playing a game within the game, which gives credence to your fucking sandwich metaphor. God damn it.
Yeah, even more than that. When the second that you start the New Game Plus, the opening scene of the game, which is Blue saying we're not going to get away with this,
Right.
after she stumbles upon him being stabbed, is instead Royce saying that
Right.
from the Transistor.
Mm. And then you pull it out, and it's
And then it's him for the rest.
right.
That could just be an Easter egg. That's another thing that's bad about the game being so vague narratively, is that it's hard to judge which things are meaningful narrative intent by the authors and which ones aren't.
Mhm.
But if you take everything as literally as possible, it also suggests that the recurse of the game is canon, and that it's just you continually going forward more and more and repeating the same cycle over and over in different transistors.
Right. Does that also imply that during the whole game, the guy we're calling Blue was just sitting in a field?
Don't know.
Like, the whole time?
Possibly.
Yeah.
He can talk to you. It's a nice field.
You want to take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break.
So, while we were on break, I was trying to not continue talking about the sound design of this game, but as JJ pointed out, it is in fact so good.
How good is it?
It's quite good, and there is still more to be said. Specifically, especially in, like, I mean, I don't know, Supergiant is despite their name, is a small developer. They're not, like, huge, they're also not, like, super tiny. Like,
the credits don't take very long.
Right.
No.
Yeah. I hesitate to call them a mid-sized studio, but they're
part of, like, a new realm of indie games that I think Braid many years ago really began to usher in, of, like, high quality indie. Like the $15 to $20 like indie space.
Right. But I mean, even like Braid was effectively made by what, one guy?
It's like was like Jonathan Blow, right?
Yeah, Jonathan Blow, and I think he may have had he did all the art. We're not even talking about Braid. Braid's a good game. Play Braid, but Supergiant's it's a larger team than that. But like even then, in the indie space, sound design is such like a difficult thing to pin down.
It's very expensive.
Yeah, like companies that have millions of dollars fuck up their sound design a lot. And me and Andy were just talking about this today, or maybe yesterday, that like Skyrim, made by Bethesda, uses the same dude for like 15 NPCs.
Yep.
And the voice acting in Transistor is almost flawless.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it is outstanding. And, like, the little, like, your, like, Transistor's barks and, the, like, enemy noises and all of the, what are they called? The little terminals?
Oh, the OVC terminals?
Yeah, like, have...
And
they all have narration. That's all narrated basically perfectly fine.
Not
like
all of them, just the ones that are recordings.
Oh, well, at least some of them are stories that are narrated. Like, news stories that are narration. And, I don't know. And that's just, like, that's a level of detail that, like, I just don't expect from this, like, scale of game.
What did you mean when you said by sound design is expensive earlier?
It costs a lot to do.
Like, compared to other things that you could spend money on in a game? I don't know anything about this stuff comparatively, which is why I asked.
I think it's more of like a niche thing. Don't you have to like hire like specific like sound people to do the sound design?
Yeah, it's the same as with like art or art's a big one.
It's similar to art.
Yeah,
music.
Well, I mean, like art isn't like the visual design of a game. A lot of the time, that can be sort of like people. They'll contract people in to make art for the game. And once a game has assets, especially at the indie level, they tend to use those assets to create the majority of like what needs to appear visually on screen, and it's just manipulated like through the actual coding. But with music and with sound design, it's stuff that has to be individually created and recorded and re-recorded and like properly like implemented throughout the game. And it is something that's difficult to nail down, which is why you see so many indie games in the like $4 to $5 range that just have like the one royalty-free track on repeat
Yeah.
for like the whole game.
Yeah, unless you want to shell out money for pre-existing sound effects, you have to record all your own.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think what like actually it says about Supergiant Games is that they're a group of incredibly talented fucking people.
Yeah.
Because the game like controls well. It does have the feeling of a game that was made on a lower budget.
Yep. I want to say the art assets are on the same level as like a Ubisoft game. Like it reminds me a lot of Rayman in Child of Light. Like all the art assets
Good comparison.
are on
there.
the same
Yeah.
like they're on the same level, and it's made by like a small indie company.
Right. I mean, yeah, I mean that kind of thing is on the same level, but at the same time it's not like fucking like full 3D models and like light shaders going
Right.
god rays
Well, it's the
fucking
same-
shooting through.
It's the same as Child of Light in that
Right.
sense. It's still just like mostly
2D
like sprite-based 2D
Right.
arts. And in terms of production values, I would even argue that Transistor kind of eclipses Child of Light as a specific comparison because of the really superior sound design. Everything has, not only does it have like the beautiful background tracks that I would argue both games have in some kind of measure, but it has all the like tiny little sounds, the like you said earlier, loading up of the terminals and the sounds from all your different like moves and hits.
which are all notably actually different.
Yes.
Which is bravo.
Didn't Child of Light get like shafted though in its development?
It got
by
shafted at the
Ubisoft?
end,
Yeah.
unfortunately. I don't know how much that would affect the sound design specifically, but I still think it came from a head studio. That makes the comparison valid in some way.
Yep.
Yeah.
But-
I do know, in terms of, I wish I had looked up a specific credit. The voice actor for Blue, for the Transistor, is the same guy who did the narration in Bastion.
I haven't played Bastion.
Yeah, I don't know the guy's name either.
It's on my Steam.
But the point being, it's just the narrator in Bastion was also hailed when it came out, so it's just that one guy is also just
Yeah.
ludicrously good at his job.
Yeah.
Um,
They're sounding like...
he really makes the game.
Yeah.
I think.
Trust me, he makes Bastion, like, for a lot of people as well. Where it's just like that guy just fucking sells it.
Because like, he really holds it together while you're playing.
That's a real shame that like we don't know that dude's name.
Yeah.
Because
Just
there's
look it up
something.
while you're talking.
This
No,
shit.
I made the comparison to the robot in Portal 2.
Oh,
Like
Wheatley?
he feels, Wheatley. He fills a similar role as like
Yeah.
he talks to the silent protagonist the whole time.
Right.
Instead of like humor and like various little, attractive quips, this guy is just like the smoothest fucking dude.
He's
Except
also
he-
funny though.
And he also doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what that was.
I don't know what that was about.
Got all the contextual quips from the Transistor too. I remember one that stuck out to me when I was watching you play it.
From the Transistor 2, 2016's Transistor sequel.
Screw you. It's the same game and just leads more credence to my theory. But one of the earlier
Lazy
times,
devs.
greedy devs. When the dogs appeared, it was like actually in a combat setting. He was just going like, "Stay,
Right.
stay."
Here, boy.
And then right when your meter recharges, when you have access to turn, he goes, "Fetch." And then that is the point at which you can press the button and actually go with it. And it syncs perfectly. So good.
Yeah.
And there was just so many different other quips and moments like that come up from that guy.
Yeah,
Which is,
there are a lot of
Did you look him up?
situational ones.
I am done. My phone is upstairs in my room because I didn't want it to make noise.
Good call. Well, either way, it really is my point. There's so many video game voice actors that people talk about because of how rare it is to have such good voice acting in a game. And there are these people that are basically unsung. You have people like Keith David, who is in 100 games.
Yeah.
Or Wheatley in Portal 2 is just Stephen Merchant, who is a celebrity. So
Or also in Portal 2, J.K. Simmons.
yeah, J.K. Simmons. Valve is a small country who's worth of wealth. So I guess they can just do that kind of thing. But yeah, if you like that guy, The guy who plays Blue and is the narrator in Bastion. The guy who's the narrator in the Stanley Parable, who wasn't even like an actor. Like, they just found that guy and had him do that.
The cat lady had great voice acting.
Cat lady, great voice. We're gonna talk about that game.
The cat lady.
Wait, Cat Lady? What?
You've never played it. It was that adventure game. We talked about it.
We should at
name.
least tell them what
That's
that
the name
adventure
of the
game
game.
with the Cat Lady is.
Oh yeah. Well, no, it's not. The game is called The Cat Lady.
Oh.
Yeah.
Play the cat.
So it's the Cat Lady in the Cat Lady?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
all the characters in Cat Lady are well voice acted.
Alright.
But yeah, and geez, yeah, and people just don't know who they are.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, it happens, but
I assume neither of you guys have your phones either.
I've got my
Mine's
phone.
right
I just
there.
decided I was gonna.
I guess I could
go on a whole spiel.
Lazy pieces of garbage.
Yeah.
If only more people knew about who these VOs were
But I'm not gonna look it up.
on this thing that looks things up in seconds.
Yeah.
But, God. While you're doing that, I also want to sing praise for the singer who did all the songs in the game, obviously. And she really sold the one hey that she had.
Yeah.
Like the one spoken line
Yeah.
of dialogue. Yeah.
I expected her to get her voice back after you beat the final boss, but she does not.
This guy's name is Logan Cunningham.
Alright. Good job.
Yeah.
Email incoming.
To me again. My inbox is just full of emails from the podcast's email account, which if you didn't know is noclippodcast@gmail.com. They just say good job. Yeah. But as Andy was talking about a little bit earlier, the visual design also works well with the game. It's not really like up my alley, so to speak, but like it fits with the game really well. I don't know exactly how much there is to say about it, but I have a feeling that somebody does.
Well, as Andy said before either of you had even started playing the game, it's disgustingly up my alley.
It is.
I just wish I, unlike specifically you, had any of the vocabulary necessary to talk about this sort of intelligently. Because pretty much all I can say is good, pretty, great, great. And
Right, yeah.
Good, pretty great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I like that's yeah.
One thing that I'll say about it is a lot of it looks like has a feel of like concept art to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, like you see a lot of concept art and it's like this beautiful, like you know, like
ridiculous
like
stuff.
awesome, like lighting and contrast and like. You know, like these like cool perspectives on like the environments in the game.
I have this like picture in my mind of like Cloud Strife standing on top of like a grassy hill, like sword behind his back, sunlight shining down. But then like in the game, it's just like
a
horrible polygons.
It's like it looks like this, like the concept art transitioned to the game art better than in most games.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they basically just drew
the concept art,
like, and then
the
just
computer
program. And just like put it in, and then just like you can walk here. Go.
So there's a really high level of detail.
Mm. Yeah, that is an impressive amount of, and like especially like we're gonna keep talking about the spine of the world, even though he's not a particularly interesting boss fight and a little bit unusual.
He's not even really a character.
Yeah, a character at all. But like. Just like the fact that as you're walking, there's like the camera will follow you like loosely, like as you transition. Like, it doesn't just like stick centered on you, and so you have like the buildings in the background, and then like the parallax like buildings further back, and then like the spine will like flash by in the back, and you can see like you could if you froze framed.
Freezing frame.
I think freeze frame.
Freeze framed, you could like tell basically, you could actually get like a sense of depth as to like where he was, because like he would be obscured by some buildings and not by others.
Mm-hmm.
Like they did have like a level of detail in the art that I didn't really expect from like an isometric grid based like action RPG. It's really kind of, I don't know, it's impressive.
Yeah, high praise all around.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah, and
Other
like,
thing.
I mean, personally speaking, I think my favorite thing that they did with the art is the fact that they made your character stand out so harshly from the environment, because there's never a point where you're walking around going like, I don't know where I am.
Because the environment is blue and you are red?
Yeah, like very specifically.
Dude, the next thing that deserves high praise, and I believe the highest praise deserved all around, is the actual, not combat system broadly, not everything that you do, not the turn system, but just the skill interactions. The like RPG mechanics of this game is probably, I think, the best realized set of like mechanic RPG elements that I am aware of.
The claims, they're so bold.
Bold!
There's bold claims in this room.
Tuscan claims.
I mean, yeah, it's good.
It is.
That's also kind of
compare
how I feel about it.
compare the skills in this game to, since we played it as like a group yesterday, Bloodborne.
Right.
In Bloodborne, when you gain a level, you get points that are kind of vaguely defined and do a bunch of different tiny things, and they're all very small and just like statistical advantages over a bunch of different, different sets.
Right. You see a bunch of stats turn green and red, and then you go,
And then
okay.
you hit things and you see the numbers go up a little bit,
Right.
but it doesn't change anything about what you do.
Right.
As everything improves in the game, not just yourself, but the enemies too, they're all differences in kind.
Right.
Everything that like you do to advance changes the way that the game plays. Even death, instead of taking like the lazy route that no one ever thinks about to like criticize or consider, of that people just assume that when like die is a fail state, and that death in the context of a game should be like you were wrong, do that again.
Right.
This game uses death as a way to continue to further the mechanics of the game, but just forcing you to experiment more.
Right.
Because that's what the game is good at. There's just so many ways that the game can produce differences in kind with all the different combinations. I should have, frankly, just run the math on this. Because when you get into these kind of like, set relationships, the numbers can get really, really
Like
high real fast.
astronomically huge.
Yeah.
Because what, that doesn't even matter. For any one given ability, they're 16, 12?
I think 16. So that means you'd have 15 times 14 different combinations of just one skill.
Right. So yeah, so for each one, I was just going to say, for each like one skill, you have up to 2 slots to add additional things to.
Yeah.
So yeah, like the number of permutations of like which thing to go where is ludicrous.
16
Yeah, I mean,
times 14 is 224.
Not 16 times 15 times 14.
15 times 14?
Yeah.
Though
210.
And that's one skill. And granted, the numbers get smaller because you have less choices over time, but there are 3 more combat skills and 4 passive slots if you want them.
Right.
The ways that you can play this game are just ludicrously diverse. One thing I've never tried that I think I might do it on recursion when I inevitably play this game again, since it's become one of my favorites, is I'm going to see if it's possible to play the game without using turn. Because you can use Jaunt as a splice to make things available out of turn, and you can use the stealth function out of turn too.
Right. That's actually going to be... I don't even know how much this relates, because I actively wanted to play the game as much out of turn as possible, because I just don't like the mechanic. Me, personally, I don't think it's bad.
I can get that.
But I think it'd be really difficult, because in order to make the most out of using other abilities with Jaunt,
Yeah.
you have to... First of all, you're going to want to have 2 slots on Jaunt.
Yeah.
But then when you put additional things into it, it just becomes de facto the first thing that you lose. Unless you purposefully, like, put, like, a really high memory thing as, like, your, like, detachable limb. Like, this is the thing I can lose before losing John.
I didn't know until I watched you guys play it that was the mechanic by which it's chosen what function you lose when you die the first time.
Right.
I don't know whether I like that or dislike that.
I notably didn't know until, like, way late in the game, and can tell you for sure that it did not alert me of that until that point. So I was, like, 4 hours into the game, 4 or 5.
I wonder it even triggered the alert, because I never got the alert.
Yeah, like, I think it's because I took up, like, 2/3 of the memory bar with one skill.
Oh.
Because I had jammed a call into Breach. So it, like,
The
together...
ultimate combination.
I think it was, like, 7 or 8 memory bars of, like, your allotted, like, 12 at the beginning. By the end, I had, like, I think 18.
It's like 24.
Well, I upgraded it twice.
Oh,
It
yeah,
was
4
4 and
levels
2.
much.
Right.
But, yeah, on the pro side of allowing the system to work that way is that, like so many other times in the turn system, it allows you to make educated, like, strategic decisions about the way that you play the game.
Right. You have to know
Yeah.
that if you fuck up, you'll lose the highest one.
Right. On the con side, it seems like, for the reason that you described earlier, it partially removes some of the function that removing functions is supposed to allow, which is to force you to think on your feet. Because you can intentionally load up a skill with the expectation that it's the one you'll lose first, so you don't lose the more important skill.
Right.
Then the system is not serving its purpose as well as it could otherwise. So I honestly don't know whether I like that it works that way or not.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I prefer it to just be like random one of the 4.
I have to say, personally, I wish everyone could have experienced, if maybe it is, maybe people do, but it had experienced it the way that I did, because personally I like not knowing, like feeling like it was random what I was going to lose, and then knowing by the end of the game, when it really matters, that you lose the highest memory thing first. And I did test that, and that is true. Like, that is just, it didn't just say that.
Okay. No lies from Transistor.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to, like, jump way back, but I feel like we got a little bit off into the weeds there. But on the note of, like, how many different permutations of things it does,
Yeah.
that's, I would argue, sort of an illusion. Because, like, things like turn is the turn skill. Not what I meant. Switch.
Oh,
things like
switch.
switch just add the same effect to each thing. You know, things like crash and breach, just off the top of my head, do similar things, but they are things that they had to actually, like, alter the behavior of the attack itself to do. But, like, with turn, or with switch, it's literally just, like, you put this in, and if you hit someone with it, they become friendly unless they're immune.
Yeah.
So, like,
And I think with call, like, whatever you attach it to just knocks enemies up in the air.
right.
Like, no matter what it is.
I think it usually increases damage, but that's just numbers going up again.
Right.
Like, that is, like, the expected thing to happen. What the game excels at is, like, the experimentation.
Though I don't know all of the exact permutations, obviously, because I didn't memorize like 200 and whatever different subdivisions.
210 is what
But
we figured out.
I would argue that that is actually better, because I don't think the fact that you can expect adding one function to another makes that illusory. I mean, there's a distinct difference between I'm going to put the, like, call ability on bounce so that I can throw it into a group and, like, hit 6 people and have them all bounce into the air for a different time,
Right.
or putting it on breach so that I can, like, hit through walls and hit, like, different individuals.
Right.
Like, even if each function just does one thing, which, by the way, isn't the case. They
Sure.
do just, like, different things based on the functions that you attach them to, too. That it would still produce, like, significant differences because the functions that you're adding them to have different uses.
Well, all I'm saying is that I don't feel like it's like this game has an infinite combination of things to do. I just think that it's like, it just adds a layer of depth to what you can do.
Yeah.
Especially since the majority of the attacks come down to, like, close range versus long range, light versus heavy attacks. And then there are utility attacks, which are where the game really shines, in my opinion.
Oh, I
Because you
agree.
can glue the utilities onto other things, or other things onto your utilities to give it, like... It kind of lets you lean importance on what you want.
This is probably a good time to talk about the actual, like, strategies that we all implemented by the end game, so that we can get a feel for the amount of...
It's gonna be really funny. Mine was just like I did almost no experimentation and stuck with like the same set the whole game. It was all offense all the time. Crash, breach, spark, and jaunt.
Right.
Breach everything all the time. If for any reason you need to use like an extra move, sandwich a crash in there. And if you lose breach, you crash things and then spark the crap out of them
Right.
until you can get breach back and jaunt around everywhere.
Yeah.
That's how I played the whole game.
Yeah. I actively dislike... I was afraid that I was going to... I have a note on my phone that talks about how, like, I thought the combat system was a really novel idea, but I thought that it was executed poorly and that I didn't have fun playing it for the first 2 hours of the game. But then I unlocked Bounce, which completely changed my perspective on everything.
Why do you like Bounce so much? You said it so many times.
Because you can fucking glue stuff to it. And eventually I found that Switch is just my favorite thing to glue to it, because just being like, you are all my friend is an amazing thing to do. But yeah, like, I mean, jaunt is really important, I think, to all of us, right? You said that you played for a while without it, but jaunt, I went
for a stealth build at one point where I would try and stealth out of combat instead of jaunting,
right?
And just allow me to have more time of safety and not have to worry about constantly dodging things.
Right.
You did something. I forget when I learned this. I think it was like really late. You found the God mode thing.
Oh yeah. My strategy by like 2/3 of the way through the game, like the thing that I just did was I used jaunt to get next to an enemy, crashed them, then used breach or call, whichever one I had equipped at the time, to like that was equipped with the mask function to give additional backstab damage. So crash to do like the crash combo damage, then mask for backstab damage, and then I would throw bounce at any other enemies in the vicinity so that guy would die and everyone else would go away. That was just my, like, that was my thing.
The thing that I settled on by the end of the game was a like a double edited version of jaunt that caused the jaunt to produce copies of yourself that were like clones, but also with like the little starting shock thing that creates a bunch of tiny little explosive grenades. The thing you used too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It turns out those in combination just creates more copies, so that you could run and it would create literally like 6 clones of yourself in a line from where you ran. So I would just keep running in circles cloning myself until I had dozens of clones on the map all at the same time, while using an ability that I'm not sure if either of you guys even got through leveling, because I used limiters a bunch, so I wanted to make it harder and slower. It's like an AoE debuff thing. So I would just sprint around while AoE debuffing people out.
I think that's Flood, isn't it?
No, that's the really slow-moving ball. This is like a big red thing that looks really intimidating.
Oh, okay. I didn't get that.
Yeah, it's the function of the guy you think is the final boss with the coat.
Right.
It's like his function is like a weird debuff thing. So I'd run around doing that, and then also used bounce if I thought there'd be a bunch of people, and if I didn't use bounce, then I would just like do like different crash combinations and stuff. I forget, I switched around the attack slot. But the point being, I played the game like a million different ways by the end because I kept being forced to try and play it differently because I would keep like losing because I had so many limiters on.
Right. Yeah. If I hadn't discovered my like just like single target kill system, honed from years of playing HeroClix, but if I hadn't discovered that, like, I don't know, I really didn't want to use the turn system. I thought that it took a lot of like what I thought the fun and strategy of like an isometric perspective combat oriented game would be. And like I was just trying to not use it. So I would just like I used help and jaunt and bounce, and I would try and like I would call in the dog and then try and run away and then just throw projectiles at people and then only use turn if I was like in danger.
Yeah. And the game allowed that.
Sort of. I sucked at it, but it's not Hotline Miami, as it turns out.
No matter how large you tried.
You kept so many times espousing like the miracle of Breach.
Oh yeah, Breach is the best move in the game. That isn't John.
Completely disagree. I think Breach is the easy move, and I think Breach exists as a way for someone who like you who wasn't interested in experimenting as much to just have something that's okay at all times. Particularly in combinations with the like different AoE explosion things and the packets. I tried using packets once, but they were a bit too unreliable, so I stopped. You can do so much more damage than like Breach combinations in a turn by like dropping essentially an explosive and then hitting with ping or something. So you just cause like a million explosions all in the same place.
I don't know. I think Breach has like a really valid strategic function that other skills just don't have. Because like, especially like, the game basically forces you to, and as the game goes on, forces you more and more to always kill weeds first. Like, that's just like a requirement of the system that the game runs on.
Yeah.
And Breach does a spectacular job of that because they all have less than 100 health. And you just line them up and
Yeah,
just
it's a strong
blast them.
projectile.
Like, you can use something like Bounce to try and hit them, but more often than not, they're, like, within, like, boxes.
To clarify, I'm not saying that Breach is bad. I'm saying Breach is an average. I'm saying Breach exists as, like, the one thing that's always good that you can always do without having to worry about messing.
It's always good, Jason.
It's just, you could, particularly because you can control the difficulty of the game as much as you want with the limiter system, get through the whole game with nothing but damage buffs and Breach if you wanted to. I didn't think it was fun. I kept actively trying to find other things that outdamaged it. I did, but they had other costs by being less reliable and things.
And also being, like, taking a huge amount of planning time. Because, like, that's why I use Breach for the most part, really. It was just because, like...
You get 3 off enough.
Yeah, it's high damage, and I could combine it with a jaunt, a bounce, and a crash. So, yeah, that just...
Crash, Breach.
Yeah, crash, breach, jaunt.
I'm just... God, I love...
God in heaven.
Oh, Jesus! Lord and Savior! Thank you for this bounty of Transistor.
Breach Sister, the Breachin.
Yeah. I don't know, by the end of it, even the Grinchiest of us, being me, was converted to at least, like, somewhat enjoying the combat system. I appreciated how, like, short... I feel like I say this like on every game. I'm like, I love how short this game was.
Now,
I love this game didn't take up too much time.
Now, I actually think the shorter length was beneficial to the game as well.
Right. Because I wasn't like... I never felt like it burned me out. Because like the combat's a slow, sort of planned, methodical process.
The pacing was good.
Right.
With the exception of that one boss fight.
It could have used one more boss fight.
But the crazy thing about it is the fact that there are so many combinations of things, and while I don't necessarily know that the math would have allowed for them to put more functions into the game, the system that they had set up could have sustained most like full length retail RPGs.
Completely agree.
Yeah, like you could I would like you could easily sell a Final Fantasy game that played like this and was 60 hours long.
Yeah. Making the Final Fantasy comparison does touch up one of the other very, very few things I can say I wish the game did better in some respect. While the combat system on your end, like the skills you pick, allows you to play the game radically differently, and the enemies individually that you face all play radically differently as they like evolve and get new abilities. I never thought that the like encounter design, I guess I'd call it, leveled up or got particularly better. Like they'd have very rarely you'd have a few that were like really different. Like remember there's one that's optional where you walk into a very tiny room and there's just walls everywhere and you're trapped and you have to like get through the walls one way or the other.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but most of the time it was just like here's a zone with some cover and a bunch of guys in it of different combinations, and they all like the opponents, like with the exception of maybe the Cluckers, don't attack you with like a coherent strategy as a group. They just all individually do their things and kind of bum rush you.
Right.
And it's up to you to respond to them intelligently. But I wish that at some point in the game I'd felt like the enemies as a unit were doing something different. I felt like I was always attacking a mob.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the process is like... And I feel like that is sort of written into the character of the process, is that they're not really like... With the exception of the weird instance where you walk in and all of the Cluckers are sitting, like, in an opera house. Like, in rows in seats. They never really appear to be, like, ruly. Like, they don't sit around and sort of, like, plan anything.
I think you're missing a couple more examples from the very end of the game. At first, they're characterized as, like, your generic, like, Borg or thing that just absorbs all life, whatever.
Right.
But then after that, they, like, express, like, individual wills. You have, maybe not individual wills, they express some kind of purpose to all of their actions.
Right.
You have all of those camera guys who intentionally leave the poster of Red up and just take a million photographs of her constantly.
Right.
You have, like, all of the, I forget the names, like the ladies, the, like, mothers that teleport around when you hit them once.
The young ladies?
Young ladies, that's it. Who are, like, have some kind of weird nursery going on. You have the Cluckers who, again, are, like, seated in rows, all
right.
like, waiting for you to like try and sing for them,
right.
and enjoying it when you do.
Well, I think I can understand that from like a narrative perspective, in that in the game proper, for the most part, you're going through Cloudbank and it's sort of like vacant because everybody died.
Yeah.
But and, like, during that time, the process is just, like, actively taking over.
Yeah.
And when they're acting like they give a shit about anything is when you're back in Fairview and everything just is white. Like, it has been a process.
Yeah,
Their job is effectively done.
They're not fighting a war anymore. Right. They're just trying to live their lives now.
But then...
Their creepy process lives.
But then the things that you fight are... men.
Yeah.
Right.
That's honestly kind of a big open question for me. The men look almost nothing like all of the other, like, process creatures.
Right.
I'm kind of assuming that they're, like, some kind of, like, final creation, or, like all the different process permutations with them trying to imitate what other people look like.
Not to draw more parallels to Ubisoft games, but they kind of look like how the Rakshasa are, like, personified in Far Cry 4, where they look almost like tribal, and they have like a sort of they have not an animalistic demeanor, but like when they switch between things, like when they're in Speedy, they run on all fours.
Yeah,
which is creepy.
Yeah. They attack their hair
right.
to attack
their
you.
haircut,
ghostly. Yeah,
yeah. And I love
one of the weirdest named enemies.
Yeah. I love that, like, when they throw their hair at you, they get, like, a status effect. Like, whenever you hit an enemy, like, if it's a backstab, it'll put in parentheses backstab after it registers the attack. And sometimes it'll be, like, they're masked, and so they're immune to something. But then, when you hit one of them that has thrown their hair, it just identifies them as shaved.
I didn't know that.
Like, it just happened, it's like, man... shaved.
Whoa.
Like, what?
God. This is one avenue where I admittedly don't have all of the like lore or back knowledge to be able to defend whether or not they're like become autonomous or not. But you can get it because using the limiters opens up like pages about all of the process. They're like Royce's research notes essentially on all the limiters. But so yeah, regardless though, I think we can agree that they became less mob-like over the game. So I wish that also over the game, the encounter design also became less mob-like.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the enemy design overall is cool, but I
I think it's pretty cool.
it's pretty hard hitting fucking analysis. Pretty cool. But at the same time, I do feel like I think that it was just what happened when they took their enemy AI and just threw it into an arena and just said, like, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
I feel like they could have done more with the design of the levels themselves, like your encounter areas, because they fence you off. They put you in a prescribed area to do it, so they had a lot of an opportunity to, like, give you sort of, like, an interesting, like, battle situation, but they did just sort of substitute in, like, just sporadically placing blocks.
Yeah. And all the blocks are destructible, too, so the environment...
So you could theoretically just clear the map before fighting.
They respawn.
Oh, okay.
They do. I don't know the speed at which they respawn. I'm just saying, I guess, from their perspective, they could have conceptualized that as like another tactical workaround for the player, where like any obstruction put up from you for a cost can be removed.
Right, like an action which takes a...
Like
significant
Space
reason.
Invaders? You can shoot through the shield.
Shield?
Yeah, actually.
It's kind of, it's got a
Yeah.
Space Invaders feel to it.
What a ripoff. Worst game.
But I don't know, I think that the most... Because, like, honestly, I feel like that was fine. I feel like if we did extrapolate it to the level that I described and put it into, like, a 60-hour game,
Oh, yeah.
that would have had to have changed at some point.
Agreed.
But I think the most egregious offense is the fact that by the end of the game, every encounter is just with men. So it's like you fight man, and then you fight 2 men, and then you fight 3, and then you fight 4 and 6, and then they're like, that's like the most linear way of, like, increasing difficulty imaginable.
Like that was like a drop off in difficulty too, because I didn't think those guys were that hard to fight.
Right.
They were hard as shit for me.
Yeah,
It's
well,
because you didn't use Breach.
yeah, that's what it was.
You hit him with Breach.
Yeah, and you didn't use the... Well, also, I didn't realize the hilarity that ensued when you switch a man. That's a weird statement.
Yeah.
When you switch a man, like his hair... This is the best sentence! I didn't realize I was in the middle of a masterpiece.
When you switch
When you switch a man, his haircut will attack him. Fucking... Inscribe it against a mountain. When you switch a man, his haircut will attack him.
I didn't know.
God. I think in those encounters, they just kept... The reason that they felt like they had the excuse to just keep adding more men was because...
More men.
It's raining men. Hallelujah.
It's raining.
They thought that the men themselves stood designed well enough that the encounters could still be interesting, because they all have like different forms that they dynamically switch between.
Right.
Although I also concede that they didn't have as much of an impact as they like appeared to conceptually.
Mm-hmm.
I never, as part of the whole like mob mentality too, I felt like they didn't behave quite as differently. They just seemed like they always stealth through their hair at you, and that's pretty much it.
Well, the hair itself deals like 3/4 of your health. So...
Oh yeah, the hair mechanic I think is cool, because they also speed up progressively the longer you let them live.
Right.
So
it's like Pac-Man. Well, it's not like Pac-Man. It's all in the same space.
Yeah.
But that's what it felt like, because you're just always running away from the hair.
It appeals to the horror that the men are sort of, I think, trying to evoke in all of the sequences where they exist. Because it's ambiguous whether the old processes used to be people that are like turned into these things.
Right. I think that's... I feel like that's stated.
Well, even if it was like, I don't know whether they like used their matter or whether it's like a soul trapped in these bodies. Or something.
Because any other time you just see those like traces floating, or like there's a literal corpse and you absorb it.
Maybe it's like a heartless and nobody thing.
I don't know.
The process are the nobodies, and the traces are the heartless.
Either way, though, the men are like very different than every process, including their like crazy hair shit looks different than anything any of the other processes do.
And sometimes get stuck in walls.
The one glitch that I've ever seen in that game was the hair getting stuck in a wall.
Right.
But the way that the hair is just sort of tracks behind you and like creeps up and faster and faster.
Right.
It's like a horror movie thing, and you can't really interact with them as well as you'd want to sometimes. They will just jump out of nowhere to attack you. I think the visual design and generally speaking the men work. I do agree with Andy though that it was a bit of a drop off compared to the prior diversity, because I don't think even though the men switch between forms, their forms don't create differences in the fights in the way that like having a third level jerk who can just like pull you out of position, or a clucker with like a thing on the ground that'll cause you to like go out of turn if you hit it, or the cameras who will just limit information to you.
I agree with you so much that I'm going to combine your 2 points into one mega agreeable point.
Oh man.
So much
The
agreement.
most agreeable point ever conceived.
In that the men do a good job of in their design, but because it doesn't create too much variety, if they had lost that mob mentality and actually worked together, the fact that the hair deals so much damage and that they themselves are so unpredictable, that if they had ever put you in a situation where they like cornered you, the fight would be like incredibly intense. But just putting more of them in a smaller area doesn't force that to happen.
Oh yeah, because you can just avoid them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, you have to avoid the hair at all costs, or else you just get murdered. So, having 2 of them, coordinate an attack on you would just completely wreck you. Though the best enemy combination, though, is Clucker Snapshot level 3, because that is fucking hard.
And you throw the cheerleaders in there.
Yeah, just to ruin everything more. Yeah,
cheerleaders with the Cluckers, I think, is, one of the worst combinations.
The more we're talking about this, the more it's making me feel like they just hit an AI wall given their budget level, maybe.
Right.
It's possible.
Yeah, it could just be me trying to make excuses for any blemish in what is my 10th favorite game of all time. But yeah, it's.
Yeah, I mean that's the one. Like I said, I like most of what this game brings to the table. It's just not really for me. I guess I don't know.
God, was it for me?
I thought it was pretty good.
All right.
I'm the middle ground. I give it a red out of green.
I thought it was out of blue.
I thought it was out of green.
I
give it a red out of blue.
Yeah.
How about that?
It's a red across the board, is what you're saying?
Yeah, red across the board.
Well, as this game's biggest proponent, is there anything else that you would like to bring up before we bring this to a close?
Just make sure, go ahead and play the recursion if you haven't already. But it's because being able to go through all of the challenges of the game with your full equipment set unlocked will only continue to allow you to experiment more as time goes on. I know a complaint that I've heard of the game elsewhere is that you don't have enough time to experiment given the amount of different functions you keep getting right up to the very end of the game. But that is solved. You also get more little side challenges, which you didn't really talk about much because both of you guys kind of hated them, I assume.
I didn't hate them. I just didn't want to do them.
Which is
I
fine.
interacted with those kinds of things the way I always do in games. I'll do them halfway, and then I'll get bored with it. That's tough.
Yeah, you know that I sing the praises of Mirror's Edge more so than most people, and it had a strong emphasis on its time trial mode.
Yeah.
Never touched it. I just that level of personal challenge is not what I play games for most of the time.
I guess the final point though is that I'm trying to get across is that there's just more there. There's more there for you to search narratively if you want it, because a lot of the things make more sense in context to the second playthrough. There is more there mechanically, both in terms of the things at your disposal and the challenges that the game presents to you. So just keep going at it and play the game forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what we're trying to get across here.
Yeah. Please never stop playing.
Play the game forever and pay attention to everything, says JJ.
Yeah, and then drive to Greg Kasavin Is that the guy's name?
No.
The head of the guy from Supergiant Games.
I
He's
thought
the
you were
designer.
trying to remember the
Yeah.
name of the voice actor.
No.
I was like, that's not at all.
Yeah. I was going to drive to Greg Kazavin's house and just give him money. That's what we're actually trying to say.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what we're trying to say.
No, don't.
Also, don't play Transistor forever. You will forget to eat and die.
Goodbye.
I mean, unless that's the way you want to go out.
He went out doing what he loves.
Yeah.
He used Breach 1 million times, and then his heart stopped.
He went out breaching. Just as nature intended.
Oh, fuck. Well, thank you if you stuck through the last 5 minutes of this. For listening to us here on NoClip. If you want to get a hold of us, you can at noclippodcast@gmail.com, at noclippodcast on Twitter, and at our website on noclippodcast.com. We also have a YouTube channel, NoClip. We will be notified of anything that comes through any of those channels, so just pick whichever one's your favorite, really, and let us know. Give us some feedback.
If you feel like it.
Yeah. Like, comment, and subscribe on Twitter. I don't think you can do that.
Do the impossible for us.
Get a job
At Twitter.
and then implement that functionality so that you can do it. Next time, we're going to be talking about Life is Strange.
If JJ finishes it.
I'll finish it.
He will finish it 'cause it's not very long. But this is the inverse situation where it's a game that me and Andy had played like individually and both really liked and are now going to have JJ play and see what happens.
He'll probably feel meh about it.
Yeah, we'll find out.
We'll see.
Yeah. So,
Tune in next time.
on a
the
very
next
special episode.
Dragon Ball Z.
Well, fuck us. Thank you for listening. See you later.
Dragon Ball Z.
Thank you for listening to NoClip this week. I'm fucking gonna screw everything up.
Again? God, oh.
I'm really bad.
Ugh.
I'm the worst.
You are really bad.
Come on, Ugg.
And
Welcome to NoClip. Fuck. Welcome to NoClip. I'm Chad Rowan. Why did I clap?
Alright, let's take a second.
Alright,
We have
just
to,
calm
we
down.
have to